Hello there. There's nothing quite like your timer hitting 0 and you realizing your microphone cord is all tangled up. Hello and welcome to Plugging Along, a stream dedicated to Lord of the Rings Online plugins. Last time on Plugging Along, we made some final bug fixes to the deed tracker plugin. And after the stream, I went ahead and released version 1.3.4, which includes update 32 deeds. Today, we're going to return to the new Crowd Control Broke plugin that I started just 2 weeks ago. We were able to detect live combat breaks from the combat channel, and we were able to echo those the bits of information we needed out to the standard chat channel. So what I want to do today is start with giving ourselves some debug capability, where we can hit a button to simulate a combat break of a daze or whatever else, a fear. That way we don't have to go out and find a mob to test each and every code change. That's good for Slayer deeds, but it's a little distracting. So we'll start with adding a debug capability, and then we will, if we have time, we'll start with the UI and start aggregating some of the information in front of the user. So, as always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts and questions. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and start bringing up some windows. So, first of all, there's a member of our community, our plugin developer community, Lunar Water, who did an amazing looking plugin for Visual Studio Code, which adds annotations for the LOTRO API. So you can see, oh, what is this function supposed to return? What am I supposed to pass? Unfortunately, I also had a class presentation today, my Dutch language class, so I did not get a chance to try that out. So I'm going to go with my tried and true Sublime text window for file editing. But hopefully next week I'll have had a chance to play around with that and see if that is worth bringing onto the stream as well. Where did I put that? I should have saved a link to that. Well, if Lunar Water or someone who is on my Discord is in chat, unfortunately my Discord was misbehaving and it wasn't loading messages right before I went on stream, so I don't have access to that link. Actually, VS Code, LOTRO, Lua API. Maybe a simple Google search is all I need. No. It's too new. Okay. I'll have to look for that later. And hopefully be able to show some of it next week. All right. So let's go into Documents, Lord of the Rings Online. And we're going into Plugins, Cube Plugins. It's me, Crowd Control Broke. And we're going to start with, I don't know. Little Redhead says their Discord is also not loading things. Good. That means it's either not just me, or it's at least something to do with our network, since we're in the same building. So maybe just I'm shouting into the void and no one can see this outside of this building, but I hope so. I hope someone can see it. Oh. There's someone knocking on the window. That's exciting. Okay. In addition to that, I'm going to go ahead and bring up the source control UI fork, which is wrapping around a Git repository. Just a moment. Okay, where are we here? Excellent. So local changes. We're just going to stage that. I'm sorry, I said stage. We're going to stash that to put it out of the way. So we're going to call that deed tracker debug. And then we don't have to worry about that. That just exists in our stashes. We can bring that in later. Okay, so we can see there haven't been any changes since last time when I just did a commit of what we had. Neat. That starts us with a fresh slate. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have. We have load settings, register for unload, initiate chat monitoring, and let people know. chat monitoring is probably coming from chat. And we can see we're hooking into the turbine.chat.received callback. And in that, we're saying, is this type deth, which is the turbine API way of referring to one of the chat channels. There are 3 combat chat channels that we care about: combat enemy, combat event, and combat player. Combat event was originally called combat death. There are a couple other things that go in there now as well. Key to what we're doing is in the combat options, display combat state break notices in chat window. That is key. That has to be on for this plugin to work. A thing that we'll want to do at some point is maybe take a screenshot of this in the 3 different languages and show it in a window saying, hey, make sure this is on the first time the player loads the plugin for that character. Okay, so we're handling all chat, and then we'll just handle combat event, which is chat type death. And then from in here, we have a debug message saying we're checking that. And what is debug look like? Excellent. We're checking a verbose output. All right, I'm curious. This is just sort of me remembering where I was. Yeah, we'll do a recursive search in here. And we can see in settings, there's a verbose output equals false. Okay, we got a lot further than I remembered. That's excellent. Okay. Oh, we even added that setting. Awesome. I don't think we're doing anything with it yet. Nope. We're not doing anything with it yet, but we did go ahead and go through the process of adding it. Awesome. What else do we have? We have a function handle broken crowd control. So this is where we will want to hook in our debug capability. Now, to do a debug capability, we will want to probably just use the options panel here in the plugin manager window. So right now, there are no options available for this plugin. We want to go ahead and add those. And if debug is enabled, we'll add some extra stuff. Okay. So it's pretty common to store that kind of thing in a file called options. That sounds great to me. Let's go ahead and have options.lua. And, oh, thanks, Moobot. There's stuff in the LOTRO market. Well, all right, you're teasing me. Let's see if there's task carryalls on Treebeard. Oh, LOTRO store. I wish you to load faster. Okay. Task. Nothing for task. And if I search for carryall, anything interesting there? I keep holding out hope. Treebeard came online after they did the last task carryall sale, and I have hope. Okay. So in this new tab, let's go ahead and finish making it. We're going to rename that to plugins. And in here, we care about the error channel in case something goes wrong, and the standard channel in case something goes right. So when we load crowd control broke, or when we unload it, we can see some info messages getting printed out there in green. Neat. Okay. So we are going to have an options, and main is going to go ahead and tell options to make itself a part of the plugin manager window. All right, initiate options. Now, that's not a great name, but naming things is hard, and it's a start. So, function initiate options. Now, what does that look like? Well, the LOTRO API tells us what this looks like. Let's go ahead and grab a LOTRO API window. I've just realized, while I attempted to set up a captioning system, it's going to the wrong microphone. Let's go ahead and fix that. Even better. Okay. If it's going to be chewing through processor, it might as well find some words to put into closed captioning. Okay, so in the LOTRO API documentation, let's see. There is a way to say this is the options, but I can't remember if it's not documented well here or if I'm just forgetting where it is. So the next best thing to finding it in the documentation is finding it in a working plugin. I'm going to go ahead and open up the dtracker options. Should it be dtracker? It's fine. And come on down here to the bottom, where we have create options content. Awesome. And what do we do? Options, plugin, get options panel. Oh, interesting. Okay. So get options panel. Okay, looks like it is not currently in this documentation. Now, if I had gone over to the documentation hosted on LOTRO interface, it's quite possible that I would have seen it there. So turbine, plugin, maybe not. That's okay. This is where the forums is very useful because this is pretty well documented by the community. So what does that look like? We have, we need a control. So local options equals turbine.ui. Daka. Daka says, what programming language are you using? This is a plugin for Lord of the Rings Online, so it must be in Lua. And that is a scripting programming language. So, where did I put that? Lua language. So, the programming language, Lua, here we go. Oh, lua.org. That's quite easy. Now, the version that is embedded in Lord of the Rings Online is, I believe, an older version, something like 5.1. So if we said Lua 5.1 language reference, we can get that here at the Lua 5.1 reference manual. In fact, I should save a bookmark to that. I could even put it into chat here. Excellent. So, yeah, no, that's good. Excellent. Cool, thank you for reminding me that I needed a reference to that. So this is a common scripting language for plugins for games. Well, common might be more information that I have. I know this is used for several games. I've heard Factorio, I think, World of Warcraft, Lord of the Rings Online. It sounds like, as far as scripting languages go, Lua is pretty easy to bolt onto your game or your application and then let people do stuff with it. Okay, so we have a turbine.ui.control. Now we do want to remember to go ahead and import turbine.ui. At least I think that's what that looks like. Oh, that should be quotes. Excellent. Thanks, working example. Now, just for testing purposes, we can go ahead and say options set size to 100 by, let's do 50 by 100. Make it very obvious what's going on. 50 wide, 100 tall, and options set back, what's that called? Set back color. All right, and we're passing in a turbine.ui.color. Now we could just go ahead and specify something like blue if we wanted to, or we could specify the RGB values or the alpha RGB values. We have a couple options there. And finally, we need to make sure that we assign this to be what the plugin.getOptions panel returns. So plugin is a special variable that's available during plugin startup and teardown. .getOptions panel is expected to be a function, so we're going to make an anonymous function here that takes a thing that we don't care. We're going to return options here and end. Excellent. So we have in main, we've said initiate options. In that function, we've said, hey, get options panel, you're going to be using this thing, and that's all we need, or should be all we need, to see something in the options panel. Let's pop back into the game. We're going to hit unload, and then reload, and then we get a syntax error. Great. I love syntax errors. That's way better than runtime errors. Okay, attempt to call global initiate options a null value. Excellent. I probably mistyped something. I did not. Oh, I forgot to import, of course. I was musing on it and then I got distracted. So we're going to go ahead and chat. General functions should probably be first there anyway. Chat, we're going to go ahead and import. This is cubeplugins.crowdcontrolbroke.options. We're going to make sure that's there. Excellent. That was the only syntax problem. The function wasn't defined at the place it was being used. Cool. Easy enough to solve. Okay, so that means if we go into options, we see a box. Now, I was expecting it to look different than that. I wonder if I called the wrong function. Well, let's find out. If we come on in to turbine.ui.control and look at the methods, let's see, size. What does that look like? Set size, okay? Width and then height. I was really expecting options set size to be very different than this. Okay, what if it's 200? Okay, so it looks like the width is sticking to the size of the parent. I'm okay with that. And then the height, let's go ahead and do 400, make it very obvious. The height here is what's really changing around. So in that case, if the width isn't even coming into play, we can go ahead and say set height and make it explicit what we're doing here. We'll start out with 200, see how that goes. Now, blue is a little bit much for my eyes. We're going to go ahead and call, see if dark blue is a defined thing. It is, and that looks lovely. Let's start with that. Now, building this is just like building any other UI control in LOTRO Lua. We can add more components to this, labels and buttons and whatever. So the version in dtracker is, of course, way overkill for what we want. But we do want to have a section that says if show debug options, then do stuff here. So it's only going to go in if we're showing debug options. And then this can live in our settings file. So debug options equals true. Neat. So I'm trying a thing where each file actually calls out the import of the stuff it needs. I don't think this is actually a good idea, but I'm trying it out anyway, just because sometimes you don't know how bad an idea is until you try to do it. Okay. So, in our debug options, what do we want? Now, what I will say about the dtracker options, overkill though it is it has some helper functions to put a thing on the screen. So for instance, that's more than I need. All right, go away. So for instance, in the options, each one of these checkboxes is being added by add option. Neat. That's pretty straightforward. And the add option is taking care of the checkbox and the what goes into it, all sorts of fun stuff. Where does I get the name from? You know, I've completely forgotten. All right, add option, checkbox. Add option checkbox, servo, set text. All right. Okay, so I had a lang structure built up with all that. So that's a little bit overkill. So instead, we're going to go ahead and just do some manual things here. Oh, that's a strange noise from my computer. Hopefully it's not going to cause problems on the recording end. So we're going to go ahead and say local, and I don't want checkboxes. I want a button, don't I? I want a button to test the different things we're looking for. Okay, we'll minimize that so it stops putting us down the wrong path. What are we looking for so far? We have days and we have fear. Okay, so local days button equals turbine.ui.LOTRO, I would imagine. Turbine.ui.LOTRO. Yeah, LOTRO.button. Excellent. And we'll make sure we have that namespace imported as well. Turbine.ui.LOTRO. Okay, so local days button. Cool, we've got a button. We need someplace to put it. And we can go ahead and use this as an example of the kind of code that we're looking to write here. First thing we want to do with the UI element, days button, we want to parent it, set parent, because only parented UI elements that aren't top-level windows will be shown on the screen. And that's a very frustrating thing to track down. Why can't I find the thing? Oh, I never parented it. It's not going to get drawn. But we can just say the options window itself owns this button. That's perfect. So days button set size. Cool. 75 and 30 is a reasonable size for a small size button. LOTRO UI elements don't necessarily have, they do not come built in with an auto resize feature in general, where if the text changes, it gets bigger or smaller. But in general, we're not changing the text on buttons. So the only place that really comes into play is for localization, where if the English term for something is really short and say the German term for that same thing is really long, then you have a question of how you're going to manage that. Okay, days button. Why is my screen shaking? Maybe people are doing exciting things down there. Days button, we're going to go ahead and set position. And in this case, we're just going to hard code it. But in a more refined system, you could have offsets from the previous one. You can do all sorts of fun things. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and set the position. And let's see, we want it to be a certain amount left and a certain amount down. Let's just put it 10 from the left, so there's a little bit of a border there. And let's go ahead and put it 20 from the top right now. Although, let's be a little nice to ourselves. Local top equals 0. And then we can go ahead and say top. We'll say the top starts at 20, and then we'll use top here. And then we can just say top equals top plus 30, which is the height of the button. So we're just going to scooch down. We could even give ourselves a little bit of a border and say 40. Okay, we have days button set text. Since this is just a debug button, I'm not worried about localizing it. It can just go ahead and be English. It's mostly for me. Break days. What is days one of them? Days and fear. Great. All right. And finally, we have the days button click, which can be an anonymous function of sender and args. And we can define that inline, or we could reference an existing function. But in this case, we're just going to do turbine.shell.write right line. And we're going to go ahead and say days clicked. And again, this is just a cautionary thing that I like to do, is just confirm that my event handlers are hooked up before I start worrying about why I don't see the event handling happening. Okay, so that is the first button, and then we can do the same thing, local, and because this is such boilerplate code, this is why you would hoist it out into its own function. So, local days button, now we have local fear button equals, and you know, I'm just going to go ahead and copy that for a moment. And we're going to go ahead and just pop in fear button instead. Break fear, and then fear clicked. Okay. And that's kind of what we're looking for right there. Let's give that a try and see, do we see buttons at all? Okay. In our options, we do not see buttons. That's okay. It's a start. All right, let's go to a simpler plugin, since we're doing pretty simple things here. The Opaque Quest Tracker also has some options. Where did I put stuff in here? Options. Let's look for that plugin.get options panel, and that'll be the place where we want to take a look at things. All right, we also did a set back. We also did a set size. All right, so we had, did we have a button? We did have a button. So we did a set parent. Oh, maybe show debug options is not being found. That would be easy. So this is where not having all my imports in one place is probably doing me more harm than good. In fact, let's go ahead and just fix that right now. I've already decided it was a terrible idea, and this is why no one does it. So let's go into, plugins, Cube plugins, that's me, crowd control broke. And we're just going to go into each of these. So in chat, we're going to go ahead and pull those out. And we'll sort these out in a moment. In general functions, pull those out. We're already in main, in options. Pull those out. Oops, README is not going to have anything. Settings, same thing. Strings. And vendor patch is its own thing, but it's not importing anything. Okay, now if you're using a reasonable text editor, you can then go ahead and just sort those lines, and that'll be a starting point. You can also go ahead and say, permute those lines into a unique set. So just remove all the duplicates. Great. Now, by convention, we like to go ahead and put the turbine stuff up top. And I feel like there's one missing that might be useful. Turbine.gameplay, oh, we're not there yet. Okay. That's what's missing. So we also can go ahead and order the things we think are important here. So the general functions probably come first. Vendor patch, options come before that, then the settings, then the strings, and then the chat. That seems like a pretty good default setup. But if we go ahead and reload here, we shall see. Okay, so now that we've fixed some of that, let's go ahead into our options, and let's go ahead and debug, showing debug options. Okay, we don't see a showing debug options. That's a good sign that we're missing something. So in the settings, show debug options equals true. Okay. Now I'm wondering, did we incorporate the dump function for general diagnostics? we didn't. That one's so useful. I'm going to go ahead and pull that in because a frustrating aspect of just dumping out stuff to look at it is that Boolean values don't do that nicely. So if we come into general functions and dump, I'm just going to go ahead and pull that in. Okay. And now in options, we can go ahead and debug, whoops, not all of that, show debug options, and we can go ahead and dump show debug options. Great. Let's take a look at that. Oh, okay. I forgot to call this thing. Is that what's going on? No. No, what's going on? Yes, we have an initiate options. What am I doing wrong? This is exciting. Local options, yes. Oh, of course, verbose output is false. Why is that false? That's not useful. Awesome. So, show debug options is true. Showing debug options, that's all great. Whoops, I've opened some files that I didn't mean to. So what am I doing wrong? That is a great question. Going back into the Opaque quest tracker. I'm trying to remember without looking at it what we're looking for. It's the get options panel. Get options panel. All right, self-return options, great. That's all formulaic. Local, that, set parent, yes. That's my problem. I said option instead of options. And wouldn't you know it, option was legal enough to use here. Perhaps it was just null. I wish there was a strict version for Lua where it would say, hey, you just reference something that doesn't exist. Yay, there we go. There's our buttons. That was a little bit more surprisingly harder than I was expecting it to be. Okay, we can see those buttons aren't quite wide enough, and there's a lot of space between them. There's no need. In fact, we don't need that top to increase that much anyway. We can have these supposition 10 plus 100. They can be next to each other. That's fine. All right, so we can break days. All right, awesome. We have an error because that right line needs a capital L. Super easy to do. Let's go ahead, unload, reload, options, break, days clicked, break fear click. Awesome. You know, it's little things like that where I just want to see an end to end. I clicked the button and code happened. Great. So, in fact, this is a great point to go ahead and do a commit. Moved all imports into main.lua. We can go ahead and capture that. So that is these lines here. We can go ahead and do that with just the lines that are changing. And nothing there. Just those lines. All right, and just that. So that's a single commit, a single snapshot of changes. And now we can go ahead and say, added a dump function. Great. All right, added options panel. And that is the initiate options call. That is the initiate options here in options.lua. And let's see, there's also the show debug options. But as we commit it, we probably want that to be false if that were going out the door today. So let's go ahead and in settings, set both of those back to false for a moment, just to clear this up. We'll stage that. And we can double check. We have our initiate options, we have our new file, and we have show debug options equals false. Great. We can even push those on out to the world. All right, so now coming back in, we're going to set these to true. And then in our changes, we can see that that's just kind of a temporary in-code process kind of thing. Now, I will say that background of blue, that's getting a little much, so I'm going to go ahead and say no. I will actually add a little bit more spacing between the buttons, and we're going to go ahead and one more time unload, reload, and we're done for now. We could, if we wanted to, actually be a little nice for ourselves and say local debug label equals a turbine.ui.label. And debug labels, we're going to set parent and make sure we spell it correctly, options. And then debug label set to text. And that's just going to be debug options. Great. We're going to go ahead and set debug label set position. We'll go ahead and give that little margin as well. And then that's going to be top, and then top equals top plus. Let's say that label is going to take up about 20 space. Not sure. Let's give it a try. Great, that was wrong. Or at least it's wrong while the text is wrapping. So we're going to go ahead and say debug label set size. And we'll start out with 100 and then 15 tall. See how that goes. All right, debug options. Great. And we can test that that's what we're getting if we change show debug options to false. Unload, reload. Great. None of it's there. Perfect. Everything's working great now. Okay. In fact, I'm going to take another snapshot. That was great. We're going to go ahead and say tidied up options panel. Great. So now we have buttons that allow us to simulate a thing. What is that thing? Well, in our chat.lua, we have a function handle broken crowd control. If we wanted to be fancier, we could include options for each of these things, who, which, what. But for now, let's go ahead and just blame myself. Affidel did it all. So the other thing we'll want are the strings that are coming on in here. What does this look like? So you have freed Scouting Goblin Warrior from a daze, Longbeard Warrior. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's pull that out so we can reference that. And we are calling handle broken crowd control. Great. So we know who. Let's just say, we'll call it Rosenbloom. She's a hunter I run with. Rosenbloom. She once in a while breaks crowd control. Which has freed from a daze. And what have we freed? Balrog of Morgoth. Great. And we'll go ahead and get rid of that debug output there. And we'll come back in here for fear. I'm not counting, but this plugin can count. Little redhead. No, it's for diagnostic purposes. Okay, let's give that a try. Oh, I shouldn't always say the same person. Let's get another hunter that I play with here. Gale. I'm picking on hunters because it's easy. Okay. Let's come back in. If I click break daze, we can see Rosenbloom, which, daze, what? A Balrog of Morgoth. Neat. And then if we break fear, who? Gale, which? Fear, what? A Balrog of Morgoth. Okay, so that gives these buttons access to the function that would be called when something is seen in chat, something correct is seen in chat. So we're bypassing the logic here that requires you to see it in chat in the first place, which is great because now I don't need to go run out and encounter enemies to trigger this pathway. I say, okay, assuming this is correct, and we can test that in situ later, assuming that's correct, then let's skip forward and say, Good. We have handle broken crowd control. Now, this is going to turn into a debug statement, not an info statement, because we're probably going to convert that into a UI. You know, I say that. Maybe it would be useful also to send this to standard output as well. Let's go ahead and put a pin in that. Add an option to turn off standard channel reporting, ? And that'll be a problem for future me to come back and say, that's a terrible idea, or, oh, that's the best idea ever. But the format's not great, I don't think. We could make that a little bit more fluent, maybe. Info, so who broke which, broke what the which. Let's take a look at that instead. All right, Rosenblum broke a Balrog of Morgoth's days. Okay, that's a little bit more fluent. Now, it could be nice to have a little variation in color to highlight what's being said here. So instead of using the info directly, let's go take a look at how it does color. Info. Cool. It's embedding stuff here. Well, that means we can embed stuff there. So if we wanted to, local who text equals who with color equals, we can go ahead and say RGB equals, and then that's just a hex code. So for instance, if we want it to be red, we can just set the red channel to full, and we do need to remember to close that. And then we can go ahead and concatenate who on in there. Local what with color equals. Now, eventually we could pull out the colors into a settings configurable thing. So that's something the user could have control over. But that's not a today task. Today we're just going to use a distinct R, G, and B to highlight that we have different things. So what, and we're going to go ahead and close that RGB tag. This is very similar to an HTML style tagging system. Who, what with color, and then which with color equals. And we're going to go ahead and RGB. I will do the final one. So that's pound 0000FF and which, and close that RGB tag. Okay. Next, local output text equals who with color, broke what with color is which with color. And then finally, we can just pass into the info itself the output text. And if I wanted to be a little bit more generous with my horizontal space, I might even break up this line into 2 lines or something more. But I think this is kind of temporary code. It's not going to last forever. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Into the options we go. Break. Oh, nice. So we can see down here in the output, Rosenblum is highlighted in red. What it was is green, and then and then the effect is blue. And we can see that again with this other one. Who did what, or to what did. So Gale, Balrog of Morgoth, Fear. I guess I could have a different message for each of them. All right, Sauron. There we go. So, unload, reload, break days, break fear. Great, Gale broke Sauron's fear. That actually sounds like a good thing. So, we have demonstrated that we have a debug capability where we can simulate combat effects, but we don't have to go out into the world and find the combat effects. But if we wanted to convince ourselves that this still worked, that's pretty easy to do. I'm in the 21st hall. There's stuff near the 21st hall. Whoops. Including gravity. So, I was a little delayed. So if I come on out here, and for now, I think I'll go ahead and make the plugin manager a little bit smaller. If I come out here, obviously, if I go to the left, there's a fall. If I go to the right, there's some stairs. But with the stairs, there's at least one goblin warg rider. Great. Let's go fear them. Oh, I forgot how long this hall is. You know, on the one hand, Moria feels very expansive, but on the other hand, you can ride from one end to the other in like less than 10 minutes, I think. So, yeah, yes and no. We had one day where we were running around looking for like the last orc that we needed to defeat for a dwarf to prove our worth, and it's like, this place feels empty. What's going on here? So they've done some really neat tricks to make it feel both very overrun with goblins and orcs, but you can still move around pretty freely. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and fear that warg rider, and then, oops, your attack broke fears. Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's fun. When it's my attack, it looks like I've done something wrong. Let's take a look. So back to the strings. All right. Self, you have freed something from that. Other, you have freed something from other. Has broken something. Okay, so what am I doing wrong there? Handle. We have who. It looks like that should be, these should be better named, obviously, because who, which, and what isn't very distinct. So let's back up a sec. We're going to say that who, let's see, who broke CC, short for crowd control, which is, we're going to say mob freed, and what we're going to say CC effect. Maybe we'll just call it effect. Okay, so who broke, mob freed, effect. Now when we come on in here, we can go ahead and rename these even. Who broke CC with color. What can go ahead and be effect. Okay, effect with effect with color, and which we can go ahead and rename to be mob freed with color. And then we see the problem. We see who broke effect. So that's the problem, is my naming was so muddled that it tricked me up. But that's why we test these things. So we actually need to come back into the options and fix that. So Rosenbloom, mob freed, a Balrog of Morgoth, and then days. Gale broke Sauron's fear. Oops. Okay, let's go ahead and unload, reload, come back in, break that days. Rose broke Balrog of Morgoth's days. Great. Gale broke Sauron's fear. Awesome. Let's test it again in situ. See if this is actually working the way we want. Cannot do it moving. I'm not moving. All right. All right. I didn't actually break the fear. And it's dead. All right. I may be a little overpowered for this level, but I'll run down these stairs and find another orc. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, on the one hand, Moria seems overrun, but on the other hand, I'm having to run in-game, like, hundreds of meters to find something. Which is actually okay, because the other reason I wanted the debug capability is my invocation of Elbereth has a 30-second cooldown, which is inconvenient if you have a fix-a-bug, unload, reload cycle that is faster than 30 seconds. All right, so use smaller effects. There we go. Your attack broke Moria Warrior's fear. Lovely. Okay. I'm done with you. Cool. So we've used a practical test to sort out that the naming of some of our variables was just too clever. I was doing the whole who, what, when, where, why thing. It's like, I can just pull out W words for everything. That was a bad idea. More clarity in my variable names would have caught that bug before it even happened. What? Oh, it's on. What do you mean I missed? How did I miss twice in a row? Was it because I was dismounting? Maybe that was it. I'll tell myself that to make myself feel better. Okay. Oh, those checking messages. I don't think those are going to be useful anymore. As a debug message, that is just a little bit too spammy. So we're going to go ahead and disable it with a comment. It's still available if we need it. I have a feeling there's got to be like another crowd control effect that I'm missing. We know dazes aren't subject to interruption, but I'm sorry, stuns. We know stuns aren't, or at least the stuns we've tested from a burglar, from a hunter, those do not seem to be interruptible by damage. So I don't think we're missing that, but I'm worried that we're missing something else besides fear and daze. So I'm leaving it open that I may have to go back in and figure out another regular expression to check. Fortunately, the combat effect channel is pretty light on messaging. We can see while we were out, we didn't have that many messages coming in. Compared to the actual combat chat, that is. Okay, awesome. So let's go ahead and take a snapshot of that with our source control. Let's practice good programming techniques. Maybe make that window a little less wide so it's not off the screen though. Okay, so we have in chat, in fact, we'll just go ahead and commit that just by itself. Commented out debug. That was a bit too spammy. Agartha, great. Roots and snares are sometimes considered crowd control. Neat. Let me make a note of that actually. So coming on in, chat, daze, fear. Is there a root effect that can be broken? Is there a snare effect that can be broken? Agartha, you definitely sound a little bit more in tune with this than I am. Is that kind of like a lore master thing? Is there what kind of class would I be looking to experiment with if I wanted to catch those out and test those? That'd be very helpful. Thanks for chiming in there. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and say fixed variable name confusion. Oh, neat. That is fast typing. Let me come back in here. Cracked earth. Is that the root or the snare? Or both? All right, I'll start typing and then maybe you'll follow up. All right, cracked earth, lore master. Root, snare. Okay, both. Awesome. That'll be a good place to start. Little Redhead has a lore master that she likes playing, so hopefully I can get her to come do some effects like that. No, just in general. Okay, so we have fixed variable name confusion. Awesome. Better debug output. That's annoying to unpack there. All right, then we have that, and we'll come back to that. And here we go. Agartha thinks root and snare are worth looking out for. Neat. Hunter trap is a root. Interesting, because we tried that and it came across as, well, maybe we didn't try it well enough. Hunter trap is a root. Okay. Let's go ahead and grab that. Hunter trap might be a root. Cool. Awesome. That's sort of the downside of me only playing a minstrel, is all I've got is a fear effect, and it's great, but it's not the end of all be all. Okay. Oops. Thanks. Awesome. So we have that as a reminder for us that we can add those later. This will still work without them. It just won't be complete if those are also interruptible by damage. A problem we've run into is with the new legendary items, our characters are a little powerful. So if you have something that's break 50% chance on damage, you'll just like hit them and it doesn't break, hit them and it doesn't break, hit them and then they die. And it's like, that was great for the forces of good, but frustrating from a plugin development standpoint. Redhead says Affidel also has a root. Affidel has a root? Really? What am I missing? Oh, I do have a root. I have to get 2 of them. Good point. All right. Yes. Minstrels can get 2 roots if they go through the right chain of quests. Have I not gotten my daily thing today? Let's get that. Okay. Cool. What is next? We've already used about half of our time today in a truly excellent manner, I will say. We have buttons, and what is next? Well, a good question is, what do we have in our to-do file or our README file? So README, chat messages enabled for days and fear breaks. Yes. Now, debug capabilities, I tend not to put in release notes because I tend not to enable them on release pushes. So ideally, an end user is not ever going to see these 2 buttons. It's not a very useful thing for an end user. So they don't go into the README file, which is kind of the public facing what's going on here. Now, of course, anyone can look at the source code and see that these debug options are available, but they do no harm if they turn them on. It just doesn't actually do much useful. Okay, so nothing in the README file. To do, finish load functions, the Opaque quest tracker for ideas. Okay, pop-up window, take screenshot of settings. Okay, those are all good. Debug options to trigger different types of messages. Great, done with that. Notifications. Sure, you have no clear button. Yeah, okay. So we can definitely go in and say, yeah, we did that. Completed task. Okay, so there was a load function, finished load function, see Opaque quest tracker for ideas. The fact that that's in there makes me curious, like, is it not finished? So let's go and take a look at that. That's going to be in settings. And we have load settings. Finished loading the settings. Okay. Well, thank you, past me. That was correct information. Now, I don't know what's missing in it. I could have had a cleverer one. Ken asks, where do you have all the plugins you create here? Do you share it somewhere? Excellent question. Let's go ahead and pause for a moment. So the common site for things like this is LOTROinterface.com. Letterhead has done a plugins command. Those are a lot of plugins that people like, and the plugin compendium is super useful for automatically installing plugins from LOTRO interface. If you are looking for things I've worked on specifically, you can find the interfaces by B4142352. That's me. But in general, if you're looking for something like the deed tracker, you just go to search downloads, search deed tracker, and boom, there it is. Whoops. I was just scrolling down and a vanity check to see how many downloads it has. The number keeps creeping up. If you're looking for something I've specifically done, if you find one of my interfaces, like the D tracker here, you can click List B4's interfaces, and then you can see my Opaque Quest tracker is there, the minstrel buffs without a out of combat timer patch is there, all of this stuff. Hopefully that answers your question. Great question, thank you. I haven't pulled up LOTRO interface today, and actually the plugin compendium. Let me go ahead and load that as well because it's amazing. Ken says, cool, thank you. Awesome, sounds like I managed to answer that question. Where is my plugin compendium? Oh, there it is. So the LOTRO plugin compendium, when it comes up, it shows you what plugins it thinks are installed. And if you go to the add new plugins, we could, for instance, find reminders by Thorolor. That's a great little plugin. And the installation process is super automated with the LOTRO plugin compendium. I can say add, and it downloads it, extracts it, puts it in place, we're done. So that's great. Or the travel window 2, click it. Click add. It downloads, it extracts, everything's great. Now, if a plugin is not listed in the LOTRO plugin compendium, or if you are installing a patch, then this doesn't help. But for everything that is a plugin listed in the plugin compendium, super great, highly recommended. Now, do remember, once you've installed a plugin, if Lord of the Rings was running in the background, the green circle here, you need to click that for LOTRO to see changes to the plugins directory. It'll rescan the plugins directory looking for any changes, new plugins, existing plugins with different versions, all of that. And once it sees them, you can go ahead and interact with them. Okay. Awesome. Great question. Thank you. All right. So what is next? I feel like the load settings is going to kind of resolve itself when there's actual settings to load. But the big juicy part of this plugin is some sort of a GUI to present the stuff that is happening. Both because if you're in combat, you just want it to pop up somewhere. And also, if you're trying to diagnose a problem, if your raid is struggling with an encounter, and part of that is because crowd control is breaking, then this sort of record of what happened during the combat is hopefully kind of useful. And I don't know what that's going to look like in the final, but I know we can take the text that we're putting into chat and put it into a 3-columned lightweight window, and that'll be loads better already. And as long as there's like a clear button or a stop and a start button or something, we're good to go. So what is that going to look like? Well, in main, we want to create some sort of a window. And lazy person that I am, I might just call it mainwin.lua. Now, that gets into trouble later if there turns out to be multiple windows, and then you suddenly have a better name for mainwin, but mainwin is referenced in 70 different places, and it's annoying to rename. But, on the other hand, it's a super easy name right now. So, here we are. Main needs to go ahead and import that. So we're going to import cube plugins.crowdcontrolbroke.mainwin. And then we're going to go ahead and I keep saying initiate, and I think I mean initialize. And that's throwing me off now that I look at it. Initialize. Initialize. Now, I just did that. I need to make sure I do it on the other end as well. So, initialize. Yeah, that looks good. Chat monitoring, and then initialize options. Let's go ahead and open up the options and fix that now before we forget about it. Now, Lua is actually really good about telling you that you called a function that doesn't exist. So this is a really safe refactoring, because if I load that back in and something was still calling the old function, I would get a syntax error. That's great. It's variables that it's not good about telling you about that, and I wish it was. Okay, so initialize main win. Great. So we just need a corresponding one over here, function initialize main win, and we'll just start from there. So what are we looking for? Well, we need a window, and there's two main options to choose from in the API documentation. We have under turbine.ui, we have the window class. This is a bare bones top level control. It is opaque. It does not have the ability to drag and drop. You have to write that in. It doesn't have the fancy borders that you get in the game with the blue bar up here and the little X button and the drag. None of that. It's just a place where you can put other things. And then you have the turbine.ui.lotro window, which does have all of that. You get a window like this, the border, the background, any skinning effects, all of that comes for free. And then there's also a gold window, which is, I'm trying to remember, where do we see the gold window? I don't know. Let's see it now. Okay, so we want a local gold window equals turbine.ui.lotro.gold window. Helps if you spell it correctly though. And we're going to go ahead and say gold window, set size to be 200 by 200, and gold window set position to be 400 by 400. And gold window, I don't recall if this is going to be visible or not by default. It looks like it's not. So I'm going to close that one down. I'm going to close that as well. So what do we have? Windows, we have visible. Set visible. Excellent. Let's do that. Gold window set visible to true. Oh, that's exciting. I declared this as a local variable, and I don't know if you saw this. It went really fast, but when the plugin loaded, we got a gold window, but then this was a local variable. The function ended, and the garbage collector could clean it up, and it did. We need instead to go ahead and just say it's not a local variable, which is great. Okay, this is the gold window. It's fascinating. In fact, let me go ahead and get a not gold window. So this would be a normal window equals, or I should say, non-gold window equals turbine.ui.lotro.window. Let's go ahead and do that. Non-gold window, set size, also 200 by 200. Non-gold window, set position. Let's go ahead and do 600 by 400. And non-gold window, set visible. And just for completion, let's go ahead and make a just a window equals turbine.ui.window. And we're going to go ahead and say window dot sets colon set size to be 200 by 200. Window set position. We'll call it 800 by 400. Window set visible to be true. But we're going to need an extra thing. So window set back color to be turbine.ui.color. Let's go with blue again. Dark blue. That would be better on my eyes. Okay. So these are the different windows, and they're all the same size, but you can see that some of the size of the 200 by 200 for the gold and the non-gold are being consumed by all that filigree border, the top button at the top. They all extend up to that top level that this blue box is as well. But they're only using some of that. Now, the blue and gold windows get all the drag and droppy for free. If I changed my skins, they would change as well. The plain window gets none of that. I can't click and interact with it. Actually, it is absorbing my mouse clicks, but it's not doing anything with them. So we'll need to enable drag and drop ourselves. And that's okay. There's a library called drag bars that we can use for that. But that's the gold window. And I'm trying to remember where, if anywhere, that is used regularly. Let's see. How about presents? No. Though perhaps in the this is what you got window when that pops up. I mean, not collections, not filters. Those are all the normal blue window. Where on earth is this used? I don't know. But it's very exciting looking. Nope, that's not what I was going for. I was going for the wallet. No, the wallet is also. Perks? Nope. Weird. I feel like I've seen it. I just can't remember where. The gold window. Monster. Interesting. PVMP? Is that where that gets used? I don't know. I don't do enough PVMP. I just assume it's something special. But anyway, it's available and it's part of the skinning package. But we're gonna be using the basic window because we don't want all that extra filigree and stuff. We want this to be very streamlined, just the things that we need. Okay. Let's go ahead and unload and strip out these things that we don't need. Now, I talked about drag bar. It might be nice to go ahead and incorporate that early just so we have an easier time of things. So if I search for LOTRO interface, drag bar, what do I get? Drag bar with examples. Great. I would like that. So the drag bar is a thing that enables this in-game looking thing on top of your window. But I don't remember how to make it go. So we're going to go ahead and extract the downloaded folder. We're going to come on in here and we're going to refresh our memory. What's going on here? In fact, I know that the Minstrel Buffs also uses drag bar. So I can also go into Documents and where I've stashed it away here. Minstrel Buffs. Minstrel Buffs also uses a drag bar. It's just dragbar.lua. But also in resources, a bunch of drag stuff. So I'm going to assume that if I incorporate that, I'm also going to need that. Oops. So first of all, let's see. This utility class that adds dragging and UI hiding functionality similar to in-game UI elements. Great. Attach it to any parent window. If self is your parent, you can attach it like this. Drag bar, self, that. Nice. Oh, neat. There's rotating. You know, one of these days I need to read through here more thoroughly because there's a lot of great information in this documentation for a developer's perspective. Okay, let's go ahead and bring in the drag bar. What's the delta button window? Okay, you've got me very curious. Huh. All right, we'll start with resources. And we're going to see if we can make this work first. And if so, we'll go ahead and add it to our attributions in the README file, because this is a great utility. So in our main window, we're going to need to remember to import from the Cube plugins directory, the crowd controlled broke, we want drag bar. Let's see what we can do with that. We also want to make use of this sample line here. oops. So we want window, well, anywhere where it says self, we're going to replace it with window. So window and window equals, and again, this is probably going to change here. There's a lot of hard coding here. Maybe I need to leave it as is. That would not be terrible. Let's leave it as is. So let's not copy them into mine. Let's go ahead and bring this whole thing into plugins. And we can reference this as a dependency in the LOTRO plugin Compendium, so that's handy. But if that's the case, I wonder what that's going to look like for our import. So that'll be destructum, and that is .ui .dragbar. Cool. Let's give that a try. Okay. I was just checking real fast. It's not enough. Destructum.ui dragbar window dragbar demo window. Okay, let's give that a shot now that we've saved that file. Oh, neat. So notice by using this community library and just following their instructions, I now have, oh, and that's so good, the darkening effect that they have for dragging the window. I'm really liking that. Or I guess just hovering over it shows you what it's going to drag. That's nice. Oh, they're emulating what the game is doing. That's why they needed top, bottom, left, right. Okay, yes. Really smooth stuff. Like I said, I really need to take some time to read the rest of the documentation. That being said, let's go ahead and just say this is crowd control broke. Oh, so good. Now, it's interesting. Okay, yeah, it's centered, but then so is everything else. So, very good. Now, the one thing you want to watch out for, at least with earlier versions of this, is that if your window changes sizes dynamically, then drag bar doesn't necessarily update. And it could look weird to have the drag bar be a different size than the window, but it's fine with me. Okay, so I definitely want to call out how awesome this is. Thanks to okay, so where was that? That was for the awesome drag bars class library. Now, the one question I have is the drag bars demo thing. That's a little disconcerting. So I think I would be tempted to incorporate this just because I don't necessarily want to inflict 3 different demos into people's a list here. Oh, that's delightful. Sorry, I'm looking at these demos. They're great, but I wouldn't necessarily want to ship them. Oh, that's funny. The third demo is slightly broken. Okay. Neat. Let's start with using it as a library, and put in our to-do item stop referencing drag bar as a library, and incorporate the element, the files as needed. Okay, but in the meantime, we can take a snapshot of this working. Oh, let's do that. Fixed naming of initialize functions. That's a good thing to take a little snapshot of here. Excellent. In our to-do file, yes, that's the drag bars. Added basic main win with drag bars. There you go. There we go. Very cool. Okay, so that kind of solves a big problem just out of the box, is the ability to move a window around. Now, we don't have the ability to resize the window, but I think that's okay. It's as we add entries to this, we'll either use a scroll bar or just make the window bigger up to a point. Either one is fine. Okay, so we have a main window class. Now what? Well, we could use a function to add more stuff to it. Window is so generic. I'm concerned that it should be something a little bit more specific, like main win, because again, window is even more generic. So we're going to go ahead and quickly just call that main win, and then we have to undo this one. Window. Okay. So function. This is short of having an actual class, where this is a little bit more object-oriented. Unique variable names is at least helpful. Okay, so we have add add crowd control break. And now let's go back and look at our chat. And we'll get those terms that we were using before. Who broke, mob freed, effect. We want to be consistent with that, so that if we end up renaming them again, we can find them all. And now that we have this, again, I'm just going to go ahead and do a debug for these things. Debug statement to show that we're here. Okay, and then we can go ahead and say, in chat, add crowd control. And we can actually use those same variable names, we just lifted them. And that's worth testing. So, in our options, break. Awesome. We can see the main win function, add a crowd control break, was called. So, we're on the way. What is this going to look like? I need something that has columns, and there's a list view control that might do well here. Let's go take a look at that. So that's in the turbine.ui namespace, and that is a list box. Because something I remember is that it might have columns. All right, let's take a look at this. Column, is that a thing? I don't know. List box members. Get item at X and Y. Excellent. That suggests that this is a two-dimensional grid. I've been meaning to play around with this, and this might be the perfect opportunity. So, add item how do we tell where it's going? Is it like, is there an insert? Insert item. Ooh, no. The index, the item to insert it. Okay. How do we set the number of columns? Set max columns. Great. And use set max columns. Okay. Oh, this is looking very much like what I want to use here. So let's go ahead and assume that that's a thing we want. So we want local main win list box equals turbine.ui.listbox. Now the first thing we want to do with any UI element is parent it. Set parent to be main win. And we also want to go ahead and call that thing set max columns. Now, we're hard coding that for right now. I think that'll be fine, but yeah, I get a little hesitant when I start throwing magic numbers into code like that. But in this case, this is a very specific who, what, when kind of thing. We'll see. Set maximum number of rows list box can display. Is there a scroll bar after that? I don't know. Oh, I'm very excited to try this little sample code though. Let's do that. In fact, I'm just going to throw it into this function here because we don't have anything named window anymore. There's no conflict there. Let's give that a try. Awesome. Okay. So let's do more colors. So what did we say? We said list box set background color. Okay, a gray. Yeah. We said set position, set size, set max rows to be 4. Okay, so there's no list box happening here. What if we don't do that? Set max columns 5. Okay. What if we bring this in? What did I do? Does it fill in vertically first? Oh, I don't like that. Huh. Okay, I don't understand how this works yet, but that's a good example. I wish all the documentation had examples like that where you could just copy paste in to see it working, and maybe even screenshots. That'd be great. That's not a today problem, but it's definitely a thing that I've thought about. Wouldn't it be neat to have a sample code block that is a sort of simple, reproducible thing that if you paste this into your program, you will see the thing and you'll see what's going on. Okay. So insert item takes an index and an item. Set item at an index lets you set an item. Not okay. I'm looking for the word at because I know we have get item at. I'm just wondering if there's anything else like that. Remove item at, okay. What does that look like? Just an index. Well, what's the X and the Y thing doing? Okay, let's just try some stuff here. So in the where did I see that? Where did I see that example? Oh, that's going to make me sad now. Oh, here it is. In set max rows. Okay. So we saw add item, and this was a control. Okay. Well, let's try a thing. So we're going to go ahead and say local who control equals turbine.ui.label. And then we don't need to worry about parenting because when we add it to the list box, that should take care of it. So who control set size. We're going to set that to 75? I don't know. We'll start with 75 and 20. And who control I don't think we need to worry about the background color. The text color might be useful to set, but the background color, not so much. So let's just set text to who broke CC, and then list box, main win list box, add item, who control. And we'll do the same with the other ones as well. Local mob freed control equals turbine.ui.label. And then mob freed control, set size, 7520, and mob freed control, set text, mob freed. And finally, main win list box add item, mob freed control. Cool. And in fact, I'm just going to do a little copy paste for the last one because that never gets me in trouble. But if I come in here to a new window and any place it said mob freed, we go ahead and do effect, then that's usually a pretty safe refactoring. Okay, let's see what that looks like. If I load, come into options, break. All right, that's excellent. Syntax error. Attempt to index a global main win list box. Yes, that was in fact a mistake of mine. That should not have been local. It's kind of an instinct I have is to make everything local, but yeah, it only works so far. Okay, that width is not enough. Let's go ahead and just bump it up here. Okay. It's definitely doing vertical stuff. Interesting. So this is the case where I would strongly consider ribbing off of an existing thing like Aura's was using listbox heavily in their options, I know. And so that would be a thing. But other thing that I think we could do is actually use a nested list box. Each of these rows could be its own horizontal list box where you add the three things in. That might be a little bit easier. So local row equals turbine.ui.listbox. And then we can say row set what is it? Set orientation. Turbine.ui.orientation horizontal. Great. So we're actually going to do row add item, add item, add item. And then finally, main win list box add item row. Okay. I think we're running into a problem where the main win list box isn't big enough. Main win list box set size, and we'll set that to be the same as the size of the window. Okay, well that wasn't in fact the only problem. Let's add some background colors. So who control set back color, and we'll do turbine.ui.color.red. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing for mob freed control, set back color green, and finally effect blue. Just to get a sense of what do these things look like. And it occurs to me, row set back color, turbine.ui.color, point to, yeah, is a good one. And this is sort of the debugging of UI layouts, which is not as glamorous as sometimes it is. Well, something I did there was not quite right. Turbine.ui.color. Well, when in doubt, undo what you did. Well, that's odd. Oh, I'm not hitting the button, of course. There's nothing there by default. What am I doing with myself? I'm so used to pre-populating things. In fact, I should probably just do that. Let's just go ahead and call that with something, just so we don't have to do that again. Interesting. Okay. So what if row set size 450 20? There we go. Okay. Now the row is big enough. So obviously this isn't the most beautiful UI, but it's functional, right? Like up to the point where we fill up the window. So maybe don't do that. So we could use a scroll bar on the side. We could use the ability to clear this thing to make it reset. But this is a basic UI that can use a combination of a vertical list box and a horizontal list box to format these things. And what I'm really pleased with is that the width of the list box, the horizontal one, those cells are the same width, and I like that. Oh, Morg says, hey, I've been gone from LOTRO for a good while and restarting. How are the add-ons these days? Still updated and all that. Certainly there are many plugins that are currently available and currently work. So, of course, go to lotrointerface.com to kind of search through them. But what I've just put into chat there is kind of a highlight of some of the Stream Team's favorite ones. For instance, one that I'm fond of and also I wrote is the deed tracker. So this is a plugin that will show you all the deeds that are available and also automatically mark off the ones that you do as you go. So, for instance, I turned off debugging. Why would I do that? Let me come and turn that back on. Yeah. All right, unload. So let me pull that back up here in a moment. So this is deed tracker. And so, for example, if I was marching along and I was in Breland, oops, and in chat, there was a detection of the old forest. This is a debug capability. Boom. What you'll see pop up is dtracker, recent completions 1. Find points of interest in the Old Forest. The Old Forest lies on the boundary between the Shire and Breeland. Neat. So, if I'm like, oh, what is that? I can click Show in Tracker, and that'll go ahead and highlight it over here and say, here it is. There are some limitations to that. We can go ahead and clear that highlight right now. And also, it'll show you all the LOTRO points you can accumulate and all the virtue XP you can get from the completion of these deeds, as well as just a reminder of which faction you might be getting a reputation if you complete them. A lot of meta reputation here. So those are all things. You can even go ahead and, let's see, announce your completion to the world. Completed, yay! Obviously you can't do that to world or anything like that, but you can say it or put into kinship is what I normally do. So I really like that. So that is an example of a plugin that's come out in recent years that you might not be familiar with. Neat. Okay. Unload that. There's other silly ones that I've worked on. For instance, I have a friend who has some eyesight issues, and so what they were finding was it was difficult for them to read the text in the quest tracker, and what they were used to was a window like the chat window that could be made opaque. And so I said, okay, here's an opaque quest tracker where you can just fire it up and change the opacity, and now you can read your quest text. So little things like that, not a big game changer unless you have poor eyesight, and maybe then it is. And then there's things like you don't even need a plugin for this anymore. You can just configure your bag to be one huge bag if that's your preference, and it's certainly mine. Although the Prime bag part of Prime plugins is very interesting, and I'm still playing around with that. So check those out, play around. There are some Discord servers for the LOTRO community, and not any official ones, but casual, unofficial ones. And you can always pop in there and read back through the chat history, because that's a pretty common question is, hey, what plugins are indispensable? And the answer is often, well, that depends on who you are and what you want, right? Like, if you play a minstrel, then I highly recommend the Minstrel Buffs plugin. But if you don't play a minstrel, then Minstrel Buff is just like, why would you even install that, right? So, are you interested in raiding? Are you interested in just being a completionist? Are you interested in playing music? Like, these kind of dictate what plugins you're going to want to be looking into. Okay, get rid of some of that UI clutter there. Okay, so we have a UI here, which is reasonably serviceable. Oh, Little Redhead points out, the Rich plugin is super amazing during like the 2 treasure hunts per year that last a couple of days. I would not do the treasure hunts without them. That is how indispensable I find it. And yet, the rest of the year, it does not do anything. So, 100 Deadly Decoy. It was a cute little plugin I made to track how long it will be until your hunter decoy explodes, which is only useful if you are a hunter. Used to love the treasure hunt in the dwarf area, Morg says. Yes, it still happens, and it is still lovely. In fact, I think my current goat is a treasure-laden goat from the most recent treasure event here on the Treebeard server. Also, the legendary servers are new. I wonder if legendary is a thing. No, it's not. Well, perhaps the Little Redhead can paste in the little snippet about the legendary servers. There are a couple of new ones moving at both faster and slower paces. And also there's landscape difficulty, which you can opt into on legendary servers. So for instance, I'm currently playing on difficulty deadly, which means things are harder to kill and have an easier time killing me. And I get a little bit extra virtue experience for it. And I can opt into a couple of deeds. In this case, if I get to level 130 without dropping my difficulty below deadly, then I can get Adept and Master of Song. Those are account-wide titles. I've already gotten the level 50 ones, of course. That was Apprentice of Song and something something. One of these other ones. No, not Mentor Song. I can never remember the other one. It's okay. So, there's a longer clip in just a moment. Cool. All right. So, oh, neat. Excellent. Thank you. So a thing that we're going to want is a scroll bar. And I don't know how scroll bars work with list boxes. So let's, before we sign off here for the evening, let's try that out. All right. So scroll bar. Do we have a sample code? I love sample codes. Scroll bar. Let's see. Which one of these look good? No. Okay. So if I recall, we're responsible for setting the size of it. But setting the parent might be sufficient. So this is a place where I might come on over to the Writing LOTRO Lua plugins thread that Garen put together. And just see, did Garen have an example here that I can borrow from? Neat. Okay, let's just borrow some code and see what it is about that we like. Ken says, wonder what class is best for soloing on a legendary server. Sounds awesome though. I'm kind of wondering if I should start a character on one of the legendary servers. I personally really appreciate the pace of Treebeard because the expansions are being kind of released onto Treebeard every 6 months, and that's just about the pace that I can keep a main character progressing through content. So I've got a level 60 character here on Treebeard. That is the end game here until summer. And so I'm able to jump in on Vial of Ma or Nargabud or other, Battle of Lorien stuff that is end game for this server and will be for a while. So I feel like I can actually finish all of the content, all of the quests, all of the deeds, that kind of thing. And as a completionist-minded person, that's really nice for me. Shadowfax is getting new expansions every 2 months, and I just can't imagine. Right? I have too much going on in my life to be able to invest that concentrated amount of time in doing all of the things. And I just don't feel like playing on a legendary server if I'm not going to do all of the things, right? So that's a me thing. And so, which of the legendary servers you like, the one getting stuff every 2 months or every 6 months or every, I guess maybe it's 4 months for Anor, the kind of the regular paced server. But regardless of all of them, they do offer you some special deeds for doing stuff. I keep unloading deed tracker, but let's let it back in. And then in the options for deed tracker, it does take a moment to load. There's a lot of deeds. We'll say this is a legendary server. And so under class, race, and epic, that enables a class of deeds for legendary content. So under here, race and social, there's a lot of them. Oops. Speaking of scroll bars, that one is stuck. All right, legendary server deeds. Come back. So there and Bree again, reach level 15 on a legendary server. You get the title Bree Seeker. All of these are deeds that can only be completed on the legendary server, and oftentimes they give you account-wide benefits, a title, a frame. So for instance, if I come over here to the character frame, custom character portraits, some of these, like the Blaze of Hope frame that I'm using, I believe can only be unlocked on a legendary server. Finn says, yeah, and those are the ones I would love to do / look at a completionist yourself. Awesome. I definitely can appreciate that. Like I said. So as far as soloing goes, if you want to unlock the landscape difficulty, I would say if you feel like you are a competent player, I think you can do deadly difficulty with any class, especially if you often pair up with someone else. I play with Little Redhead there in chat quite a bit, and so their hunter and my minstrel combined to be a very effective duoing team, even at deadly difficulty. I've been tempted to bump us up because deadly is just the start of the hard part. You have deadly, deadly +1, deadly +2, all the way up to deadly +6. And so I've been tempted to hey, maybe we should make it even harder. This doesn't apply in instances. It's a landscape effect for the most part. Technically, it'll also affect single and duo skirmishes. Morgo says, yeah, me and the wife always duo as a hunter and mini. Very good pair. I absolutely agree. Now, I think the reality is if you feel like you are a reasonably aggressive player, then any two characters are going to be enough to combat the deadly difficulty. Like you could do 2 guardians, right, and you'd still have enough DPS to get through the day. But so really, I would focus on what classes do you like to play, and not which one do you need to play in order to solve the stuff. I think you will find that you have enough power to survive. Now, I could be mistaken on some of that. Maybe there's a class out there that's just really weak, but they've introduced the Brawler class, which is another melee tank / DPS / whatever class. And it's got a really interesting mechanic for its trait trees, which I haven't even gotten into myself. But instead of having 3 trait trees, there's 2 trait trees plus a third thing you can delve into, but it's not a tree. It's its whole thing. Anyway. So yeah, I would focus less on what you need to play and more on what do you want to play. Because I think especially if you have someone else you play with, but even if you are just a pretty confident player, you'll do fine. Margot says, did a pair of Runekeepers for a while, oddly effective. I could see that, especially if one of you is kind of focusing on the damage and one of you is focusing on keeping you alive if the damage isn't enough to just blow everything away. But I get very rune envious when I see a Runekeeper just run in and plop down an exploding rune and run away and everything just dies. And I'm like, that's so nice. But then as a minstrel, I can't complain because I'll just run into a group of things and do 4 massive AoE effects, and then I'll run back out because everything's dead. So it's fine. I'm a huge fan of playing minstrels myself. I really love that in landscape, I can be very aggressive. I can almost play as a mini tank because I have enough survivability. If I need to, I can go ahead and put a personal bubble on for like a third more health. I can heal myself while I'm moving. And so I feel like I have a lot of survivability, even though I'm only wearing light armor. And I feel like I get a lot of that because I'm willing to be mobile all the time. If I'm just going to stand there in combat and let them beat on me, it's not so effective. But if I'm running circles around them, then there's just enough of a delay for the AI being able to move and attack and move and attack that it feels like it gives you that kind of an edge. So, oh yes, Little Redhead points out, don't underestimate the importance of foods. You can see right here in my top bar, I've got my cooked food and my trail food and my fortifying food and also Bjorning honey cakes, the effect of which stacks with cooked food, even though they share the same cooldown. Don't be afraid to have those running all of the time. And once you can get a scholar to give you the warding lore and the battle lore and get some hope tokens in there, these definitely help offset the deadly difficulty part of things. Morgo says, all my characters are minis except for that Runekeeper. Yeah, exactly. I'm on Treebeard and I'm missing not having a task carry-all bag, and so I have an alt that's just to hold stuff, and they're just another minstrel. Like, I don't need another minstrel, but what else am I going to make? So, yeah, it's good stuff. Hopefully, I caught all the bits in chat there. Thanks so much for chiming in with your thoughts. Little Red had pointed out we've changed how we played Hunter. Yeah, early levels, the Deadly Decoy was very effective. they may have fixed this in a patch since Treebeard went live, but in deadly difficulty, you do less damage. And I wonder if there's more information in my quest log. Is it in here? Oh, maybe it's not. You get a quest and then you complete it. That's what it is. So you do less damage to enemies and they do more damage to you. But they did not scale the damage of the exploding decoy the same way. So we would be banging on things and it would be kind of a slog, especially in a mission where everything was on level. And then you put down the decoy and then it would blow up and everything would just fall over dead, which was just delightful. Which is why I made the 100 deadly decoy plugin, because it was like, okay, but when is it going to explode? And how much health does it have left? Is it going to die before it explodes? So that was a fun thing to throw in there. Okay, awesome. Thanks so much for chiming in there. We actually have kind of run out the clock here as it is. We are coming up here on the hour. So I think I'll pause on looking at the scroll bar. Maybe we'll pick that up next time. In fact, maybe I'll make a note to myself. Okay. So add a scroll bar to the, let's make it at the top. Add a scroll bar to the list box. We can have more entries off that we can scroll to. Neat. All right, that's a good reminder for where we'll pick up next time. And then, so if you have any final thoughts or questions, go ahead and let's throw them out into chat there. And then if any come in, I'll go ahead and talk about them if I have any thoughts or opinions on them. And then we'll go ahead and bring this one to a close. Sample scroll bar code. And I'm going to go ahead and comment that out so I know it's just there as a sample. Neat. All right. Go ahead and minimize that here. Okay. Well, from the depths of Moria, I think we'll be ready to say goodbye here in a minute. All right, well, I'm not seeing any additional follow-up in chat, so I think that's all we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. I do hope to see you again next week, and until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.